Okay, so before I showed you in the previous video how to do multiple plots. Here we're plotting multiple brands across the whole series. And the thing about this, though, is like, what if we want to keep doing add all the plots for all brands, or add a bunch of different plots on here? Um, you see what we end up doing is we end up having a lot of very repetitive code. So you see how this code for Y1 and Y2 is actually very repetitive, only difference being that I'm changing the brand around. Everything else over here is the same. So when you start doing a bunch of repetitive code, and you're just like, there's only one thing that's really changing from line to line, then this is a very great candidate to reduce this code using a loop. And looping is your very first, more advanced topic, but it is one that is incredibly powerful, and it will help you in so many ways. It's common actually across all programming languages. There's different kinds of loops, but what I want to do here is actually talk about a for loop. So what a for loop does is, a for loop uh, is going to look through a list here. And so first, actually, I need to define an array that's basically like a list. I'm gonna call this list brands. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm looking at this. I'm looking at my panda data. So this is a pandas, and I'm calling a method which is unique. So I'm looking for the unique values of df brand. And if we just run this real quick to see kind of what I've done here, I think it's always the best way. Just run. You should actually really be running through all of these line by line just to see. You see, I get an array of all the different brands in my data frame. And so I'm just defining that list is equal to all. Now I've got all the different brands right here, the names. And so what the for loop is going to do is going to say for, and I is going to be a placeholder that will count. You'll see it down here in my code. So for I, anywhere that there's an I down in my code, it'll replace the I with the element from the list. So for I in the list of brands, which I've just defined, and I end it with a colon, and then when I hit enter from this line, actually, it'll leave me with an indent. And indenting basically is going to mean that everything on this indented line will be run. So the code will go for the very first element in this list brands, which is adult cola. It'll say print. Now it goes to the next line. It'll go print I. So print adult cola. And then the loop will go through the next line, which is just a comment, the next. And when it gets here, it'll flip back to the top and it'll insert the second element of the list and go boom, 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 boom to the bottom, then the third, and so on until it's all exhausted. So if I just did for I in brands print I would just get the list of brands in the list. Now, the interesting thing is that we can actually embed more than just a list in this, or sorry, we can do more complicated things than just print. We can actually do any kind of operation within this loop. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So what we're going to do is, we have our brands. I'll do for I in brands. And I'm going to define my Y is equal to this df. I'm slicing it exactly like I did before, except where I had the name of the brand, I'm just going to put I. I is going to be from that list in there. And then I'm going to plot it just like before, except the label, again, I'm just going to replace the label with this I. So it'll replace it. And it's going to loop through this and create, every time it goes through, it's going to redefine Y and then plot a new one. And basically, it's going to just keep adding lines this way until it's gone through the entire list. And then the same thing then the rest of the code is pretty much the same. What I'm doing here is just adding the titles and everything else. I have one last bit of code, which is to export it. I'm going to maybe talk about that in another thing, so I'm running out of time here. But if you run this, it's very nice. Now I've got every single brand plotted over the entire series, and I can actually start to do some more analytics on every brand now. And I'm going to ask you more questions about that. So with that said, we'll see you at the next video.